Published 13/20 the 24th of April 2018. Updated 12/50 the 25th of April 2018. Emma Rawle Guide to the Tour de France. Copyright B. Bade, ASO Archant Discover the route of the 2018 Tour de France, the best places to cheer on the peloton in the history of the world's most famous cycle race. Tour de France 2018 route. Copyright ASO. The 2018 Tour de France route unveiled last October. The official 2018 Tour de France route takes place almost entirely in France, apart from a 15 km detour into Spain during stage 16. Covering a total distance of 3,329 kilometers, the route comprises of 8 flat stages, 5 hilly stages, 6 mountain stages and 2 time trials, 1 individual and 1 team trial. This year's Grand Départ will begin in Noirmoutier-en-Lille, a town on the island of Noirmoutier just off the Vendée coast, with a flag race across to Fontenay-le-Comte. The race stays in Vendée for the next 2 stages, including a team trial, before heading north into Brittany and then east into Pays de la Loire, Normandy and Hauts-de-France, where the tricky cobbled sections of the Paris-Roubaix race are waiting to catch the cyclists out. The race then heads into the Alps for a couple of stages, before moving east through the Massif Central and the Occitanie region, before it's back into the mountains, this time the Pyrenees. Similarly to the 2017 Tour, there will be an individual time trial on the penultimate day, this time between Saint-Pie-Écueil-sur-Nivelle and Esplit, before it's off to Paris for the traditional finale along the Champs-Élysées. ____. Don't miss 23 amazing facts you didn't know about the Tour de France quiz. How much do you know about the Tour de France? Plage des Dames, Noirmoutier-en-Lille. Copyright Altitude Drone, Getty Image. Best places to watch the Tour de France. Noirmoutier-en-Lille, half a mile off the coast of Vendée. The small island of Noirmoutier will be hosting the 2018 Grand Départ on the 7th of July. It's a flat stage and the cyclists will make their way from Noirmoutier-en-Lille across the island and then over the bridge to mainland France, finishing 189 kilometers later in Fontenay-le-Comte. If you can, head to the island a few days early so you can hop on your own bike and explore its sandy beaches, harbor, salt marshes and pine forests. You could even try the Passage La Goie across to Vendée. Make sure you time it right through. It is covered by the tide twice a day. Lorient, probably most famous for the Interceltic festival it hosts every August. Lorient is a bustling port town in Morbihan, a former naval base and former headquarters of the French East India Company. The 5th stage of the 2018 Tour de France starts in Lorient on the 11th of July and races along the Brittany coast, up some fairly steep hills, and finishes in Quimper 203 kilometers later, Le Grand Bornand. The charming alpine village of Le Grand Bornand welcomes the riders at the end of Stage 10 on the 17th of July, the first mountain stage of Le Tour and a grueling climb from Annecy. Le Grand Bornand is a popular family-friendly ski resort, but has maintained its traditional charm with picture-perfect wooden chalets, a market square and church, and, in summer, is surrounded by lush green mountainside pastures. Carcassonne, one of the most visited attractions in France, the walled city of Carcassonne-en-Aude looks like it has been taken straight from a fairy tale with its winding streets, drawbridge, ramparts and towers. It will be a welcome sight for the cyclists after a tough climb up the Pic du Nord during stage 15, even more so with the prospect of a rest day in Carcassonne on the 23rd of July. They then leave Carcassonne the following day as the Tour heads off into the Pyrenees. Esplit. The Tour de France will be passing through the Basque region of France for the first time in 12 years, including the town of Esplit, which is where the individual time trial finished on the penultimate day of the race. Esplit is famous for its peppers, called the piment d'Esplit, and these red peppers adorn the facades of the traditional white Basque houses in the summer when they are hung out to dry. ___. Don't miss what's happening in France in 2018. 7 exciting French cities to visit on a weekend break. ___. Tour de France 1936. Copyright Agence Rawle. Public domain, via Wikimedia Commons. History of the Tour de France. The first Tour de France at just after 3 p.m. on the 1st of July 1903, 60 cyclists lined up in Montgeron to the southeast of Paris to embark on the first Tour de France. The cyclists rode through the night for 467 kilometers to complete the epic first stage to Lyon. When Maurice Guérin and Émile Paget crossed the line the next morning after 18 hours of cycling, only 1 minute separated them. This is exciting climax to the first ever stage would ensure the Tour's lasting popularity. Guérin won 2 more of the 6 stages and took the Tour title by almost 3 hours, a margin that still hasn't been beaten. Despite the start being delayed by 2 weeks due to a lack of interest among cyclists, 20,000 fans turned out to cheer Guerin into the Paris Velodrome on the 18th of July. Only 20 other riders completed the race. The development of Le Tour for Le Tour, the magazine that had organized and promoted the race, and its editor Henri Desgrange, the race had been a huge success and would help to reverse its falling circulation. By 1933, sales had increased 40-fold to more than 800,000. A year later, Desgrange's instinct was to call the whole thing off. The Tour had become a monster. Such was the devotion of fans to their chosen riders that cheating was rife. In the early days, the thinking had been that the Tour should as far as possible follow the outline of France, which meant conquering the Alps and the Pyrenees. So in a move that could have put an end to the Tour, Desgrange gambled in 1910 on organizing a stage from Bagneres de Luchon to Bayonne in the Pyrenees that would include the Col de Tourmalet, 2,115 meters. Cycling through the Alps during the 2014 Tour de France, copyright ASO, Bade Octave Lopez, riding a gearless bike, was first over the Col du Tourmalet, despite having to get off and push at one point, and he went on to win the stage in the Tour. Since then the col has been included 79 times. The massive Col du Galibier in the Alps, 2,645 meters, followed a year later. It was during the 1919 Tour, the first after 4 years of war, that the yellow jersey for the leader in the general classification was awarded for the first time. Gradually the race became more professional and individual riders known as tourists routiers were replaced by trade-sponsored teams. However, the latter were banned in 1930 because of fears that technological advances were giving them an unfair advantage, so riders had to compete in national teams. The ban remained until 1962. Le Tour during the two world wars. During the slaughter of World War I, there had been no question of holding the Tour. In World War II, the occupying Germans were keen that things continued as normal, but Le Tour refused requests to hold the Tour. The Tour returned in 1947 after a 7-year absence, but Le Tour lost the rights to run it because France's first post-war leader, General Charles de Gaulle, believed the magazine had collaborated with the Germans. Rights were eventually granted to the Amaury Sport organization, which still runs the event. The Tour de France. Today the Tour continues to grow in importance and has become a worldwide phenomenon. The race is now covered by 2,000 journalists and is televised in 190 countries, of which 60 transmit live coverage. Inevitably, such a high profile attracts those with a point to make. Like this? You might also enjoy 23 amazing facts you didn't know about the Tour de France. Fun ideas for active weekend breaks in France. France's UNESCO World Heritage Site.